Hi everyone, welcome to another Dan's Rest Stop. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the spiritual contact that some people have before they pass away. Now, if you look on the internet and look at hospice stories, there are many stories from nurses that talk about people seeing things before they pass. Some see angels, see Jesus, some see loved ones, friends, spouses, pets. Now, before you think, is this biblically sound, you just have to look at the story of Stephen, the martyr, who just before he was stoned to death, he saw a vision of heaven. In fact, in Acts 7, verses 55-56, the King James Version, it says, "But he, being full of the Holy Ghost, looked up steadfastly into heaven and saw the glory of God, and Jesus standing on the right hand of God, and said, Behold, I see the heavens opened, and the Son of Man standing on the right hand of God." What I want to talk about is a few personal experiences of my own in which I have heard about things like this happening with family members. Back in April 1970, when my grandfather, Paul Herman, was in the hospital, my Uncle Joe and Aunt Helen were visiting him. He was there in the bed, and all of a sudden he sat up and he said, "Mr. Lewinsky, what are you doing here?" He passed away shortly after. Now you have to understand, Mr. Lewinsky was a neighbor of my grandfather, and they used to play cards together. The second story I would like to tell you about involves my grandfather, Paul Herman, although he's now deceased. My grandmother, Frances Herman, who we used to call Busha, told me and my wife this story. It was in between 1971 and 1974 when we were both living in Chicago and going to school there. We used to visit my grandmother. She told us a story about an elderly couple who had been a friend of theirs. And she said that the elderly couple was sitting in the living room, husband and wife, in different chairs. And apparently the wife must have been sitting close to the phone, because what happened was the husband heard the phone ringing. He asked his wife to go get the phone. She didn't hear it ringing. She kind of ignored him. Then he said, again he heard the phone ringing. He said, "Will you get the phone?" And she didn't hear it. She thought he was going crazy. So the elderly man gets up, goes to answer the phone, has a conversation, gets off the phone, goes to sit back down in a chair, and his wife is looking at him like, what's going on here? So she says, "So who was it?" And he said, "It was Paul." And she says, "Paul who?" And he said, "Paul Herman." And she was rather surprised by this, since Paul Herman, my grandfather, was deceased. And she said, "Well, what did he want?" And the elderly man said that he said he was coming to visit me. He then proceeded to sit back down in a chair and passed away in the chair shortly after. Now, another story that I'd like to tell you about it is my dad. When my dad was hospitalized for leukemia, it was like late September, early October. He was there approximately 3 weeks and died on October 3rd, 1999. Well, when we went to the wake, my Uncle Joe came up to me and told me that a nurse had come to the wake to visit my dad and told him that my dad said that he had been visited by his brother Frank. Now, his brother Frank had passed away in 1998. Now, I had another story about my wife and what happened when she passed away, but I've already covered that in the faith video number 24. So I would recommend that you go to that video to get the story in more detail. Anyway, the way I look at it is that I believe that when we're ready to pass away, I believe that maybe this is God's way of helping us and His love for us to make our transition easier. And that's why we see who we see, whether it be Jesus or loved ones or angels. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Goodbye.